Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today in our weekly webinar series. Today our featured topic is industry-specific installer training. My name is Jessica Petrahoy, and I'm the marketing coordinator at fiberoptic.com. Fiberoptic.com is a leading provider of fiber optic products, training, and rental equipment. We're pleased to present this topic to you today. With us today to talk about industry-specific installer training is Jack Ianire. Jack is one of our senior instructors and a field technician with over 25 years in managing and testing networks. When Jack is finished with the presentation, we will take questions from the GoToWebinar question box, which is at the bottom of your screen, for a question and answer session. Remember that our webinar series are recorded and available to you online at fiberoptic.com/webinar. So thank you again for joining us today, and at this time I turn the presentation over to Jack.
Well, welcome everyone to this training session. You'll notice that it says industry-specific installer training, and as a subset, ways to get the most from the TFS certification for the installer certification options. Now what we're going to do, as you see in front of you, is discuss what's happening generally in training today and how to take advantage at the installer level of these certification options. So we are going to discuss the traditional way that certification courses are, and then the new online training choices that we have, and specifically today, industry-specific installer training. So we will give you an overview of that. Also, we'll talk about the self-paced e-learning platform and how to prepare properly for the training for yourself and for your employees. And this is the ways that will give you suggestions on how to get the most from, in instance, the practical exam that is required, and how to approach the actual certification 50-question certification exam, and then how to get the most out of the actual hands-on certification class. And then we'll finish up today with the thing about custom training opportunities, how you can customize training to meet your specific needs. Now here at TFS, the courses have been developed and refined over the years so that the material presented is always current and relevant and does not waste your training dollars. Typical courses, though, historically have always consisted of lecture, video, and ample time for hands-on lab and one-on-one time with an instructor. As an option, there is a full lineup of online and specialty courses which are accessible anytime, anywhere. And these are what we're going to get into today. Now, the options that are available to the employer and to the actual student, if it's not the employer himself, that gives you the best possible way to approach the training and get the best experience that you possibly can. And that's what we mean by the installer certification options. Well, as in any market, the key to success is staying ahead of the competition and continuing to build core sets throughout your career with additional training and certifications. Highly trained installers generally produce work faster, more competent, and are more reliable. And they're essential to any company that deals with fiber optics, and an indispensable part of your workforce and corporate strategy. So certified installers equals satisfied customers ultimately. Now the value of certification. So if you're a service provider or an individual installer, it just justifies or confirms that you have the proper knowledge base and skill set for your industry. And in order to qualify for many of these projects and jobs out there, you must be certified. And certification can lead to increased job revenues, and even from an installer viewpoint, possibly higher wages. It also distinguishes your company and the installers you employ from the competition. Now, installer certifications at this level has been designed for new to intermediate level students. So historically, it would be for someone who either has who just started yesterday out of high school, let's say, or limited experience, up to ones that are very experienced, but just wish to validate their hands-on skills and receive the recognition from a certification group such as the TFS. Now let's talk about traditional courses, because what's happening in the industry, like many others, there's a traditional way to get a certification, and there are new web-based online trainings that are available for you today. So we're going to take a look at what the choices you have, starting with the traditional way for you to approach a certification, again, at the installer level. So traditionally, we would start out with a classroom-based instructor-led training. Typically, they would be 3 to 5 days of length, and they provide the student a relevant and guided learning experience. Now, typically, the goal is to combine about half the class with lecture and knowledge or learning, and then about half the class with useful hands-on practical labs. Now, they're designed to deliver what you need to know about fiber optics and to give you a good training experience so that when you leave there, the student will be confident that he can perform the job task needed at hand. Now, that's the traditional way, and it does have some disadvantages. One, although it's one of the best ways to obtain training, and as I sit here to you today, it is still one of the best ways to get good training and learning. The disadvantage is that the installers are removed from the field for 3 up to 5 days. Now that doesn't include the time to get to and from the location of the classroom. That does mean that travel expenses are incurred. So you have travel time, airfare, per diem expenses, hotel rooms, and everything else associated with delivering the student to a specific location. So time is money, as the old saying goes. Now let's start to talk about this specialty. Now our conventional certification course is titled Certified Fiber Optic Installer, what we call the CFI. And it is traditional baseline certification. Now, as we begin to come into industry-specific training, one of the main thrusts of this topic here today is that we've created specialized installer courses. And they're designed for individual fiber optic industries. And these are specialized installer-level courses that focus on installation procedures appropriate for the chosen environment of the predominant industry that you work in. Now, you can further your training by choosing a course specialty that fits your industry needs. So it's about just getting started, getting the certification that is needed, and getting ahead in the industry. But all certifications aren't the same. And here we're sure that we want to make sure that you get the training that you need for the field that you're in. And getting the proper certification for the market that you serve is crucial. Now, specifically to this industry-specific training, is that it is designed to save time and therefore money to the students and attendees. So in these scenarios, the course lectures must be taken online before attending a required hands-on class. And we'll go into more details as we go on with this. So upon successful completion of the online lectures and exams, students then attend an appropriate hands-on training. the hands-on training is required to actually complete the fiber specialty certification itself. Now first we're going to go into what specialty trainings are available. Now the first one you note up on the screen, and I won't spend too much time on each one, I think they'll be kind of self-explanatory, is a fiber specialty to the antenna or tower installer. So it's obviously designed for people who install, test, pull fiber optic cables within towers and antenna network systems. And all of the skills applicable to that specific discipline. Now I'll give you an idea how these are pieced together at this point. The specialty training does include the base CFI certification, and that incorporates basic fiber optic fundamentals, installation procedures, and then the third module being the specialty training, which are fiber optic installation practices specific to that discipline, not already covered by the base. So in this case, it would be specific to the antennas. The other item that's very popular today is the fiber to the X, or fiber to the home, or fiber to the curb, the quote FiOS type of installation. And this additional training does cover network design, maintenance, and troubleshooting, and discusses active and passive optical networks and advantages and disadvantages, and field implementation is featured in these courses. The next one we're going to take a look at is the wind turbine installer. And again, the layout, installation, and maintenance, and specifically the wind turbine installer, does focus on some sections, not just about multi-mode and single-mode cables used, but also about SCADA, or the supervisory control and data acquisition systems commonly used in these types of turbines. This next specific training is ITS, but for traffic systems. It's called Intelligent Traffic Systems. And these are fiber optics that are increasingly being used. As you drive down the highway, you can't avoid them between the camera systems, the traffic lights, messages, all of the technology that you see today. And it still teaches the essentials of splicing, testing, and troubleshooting, as well as the outside plant type of knowledge required to work with these type of traffic systems. The next course that is a specialty is for the military. Now basically, in the military world, they can be fixed installations such as the Army and Navy installations themselves. Well, they use familiar networks and infrastructure, as do commercial buildings. So there's a lot of similarity to the cabling and fiber optic performance that's used in the other disciplines. But some of their applications might take the form of highly engineered cable designs, interconnect harnesses, and or multi-branch conduit systems. Now many of the specialty connectors that they use precision contacts called terminate, and you'll see a little picture of a military style connectors. And these connectors are military harsh environment, and they can accommodate not just multiple fiber but also electrical conductors. And our topics therefore include some of these tactical fiber optic connectors and assemblies utilized by the facilities and deployable in harsh environments. Now the basic specialty here, I would say, would be aimed at more of the Naval, Army installations. And we often do some as custom, some more extensive military training, as you might see with the T-Focus stuff as it applies to, installations and equipment and chips, and also is available. but the basic installer level, you could pretty much for fixed installations. So if you're a contractor that happens to work on military bases or any government type of facility, this would be the base class for you. But if you're one that is getting into shipboard type of stuff or tactical type, then we have a class offering that we can expand this to also. So that's the military. The next one we wanted to take a look at is specifically for mining. Now, a lot of the attendees or potential attendees may in fact be working for the mining companies themselves. And it addresses challenges of deploying and maintaining networks in harsh mine environments. So it's about providing reliable communications, continuous monitoring, and analysis of hazardous environments. But it's tailored to whether you're underground or open pit or strip mines. And a good example shown here is a strip mine, but we did have some attendees who had some open pit mines, and they were using a specific type of that most of you are probably familiar with outside, the figure 8 aerial. One of their problems is they move the figure 8 often. It's a very bulky, and introduced to a cable such as ADSS, which eliminates the need for a guy wire altogether, they found it easily to rearrange their pole configuration as they dug deeper where equipment had to come in and go out as they go. So that's the mining option. Now, the other side, this one's called OGP for oil, gas, and petrochem. And what's interesting in this is the third day would be apply that if you are in the oil and gas industry, whether you're out on a platform exploring or on land or monitoring pipelines, or for the sense that you are in fact in a petrochemical environment, a chemical plant, obviously a refinery of some sort. Now where this gets interesting is this is often a different set of cables than you might be familiar with if you're a typical premise or outside plant type of installer. And what I mean by that, we go over the specific hazardous or harsh environment cables and connectors used in that type of arena. We also get into monitoring and sensing applications in this class using fiber. And that means many times the fiber is used for sensing. That would be temperature, vibration, pressure that may need to monitor pipelines over long distance in a shifting geology type or geographical type of. So this is an interesting class because there is so much what I would originally have called industrial automation and sensing that goes on in these type of facilities, which is not common to a commercial building guy or to an outside plant guy or a cable TV guy. Now also we have the opportunity to do what we call pro audio video. Now here you just see a simple application which would lend itself to commercial conference rooms, school districts, airports where you have multiple messaging and display. Now the dash tel here for telecommunications is kind of the general specialty I like to call. It's basically a bit of telephony, but for the internet, long distance, short distance applications. I call it basically the installer generalist category. If you want to take a specialty but not sure, this is always a good choice and does involve deeper into testing, as do most of these modules do, than the normal CFI class would normally take you. And then finally, UTL or utilities. This is really aimed at clients that work out on the poles, whether it be municipality, sometimes the traffic guys fall under this category, but they may be working for the REAs and co-ops. In general, it's a outside plant installer type of course. So you don't get the full outside plant technician class that we do, which is a 5-day class, but you do get the basics for entry-level outside plant. And that's where the utility fits into the mix here. Now, which one you pick depends upon what you do. Often with the experience over the years, with students showing up in class, is that most people are not generalists, and most companies are particularly doing tower work or military base type of work, or cable TV or fiber to the home or commercial building. And because very often the companies and the installers themselves are pretty much dedicated, that's where these certification specialty courses really shine. If your specialty is working on the military or in the oil fields, then to have the fiber optic certification with a particular specialty sets you apart even from anyone who's just carrying a general fiber optic installer certification. Now, what's new in the market? Because today everything is quickly moving online, and the time period needed to be out of the office is shortened. Now that has both advantages and disadvantages from the perspective of both the employee and or the student installer. So these new classes are moved online, and they're placed on the self-paced e-learning platform. So the relevant and guided learning experience that combines the lecture and practice exam to deliver what you need to know for your specialty. And they afford the luxury of at your own pace. And we are going to discuss a little bit about at your own pace a little bit when we get into some tips for really how you should approach this. So as we move to this new training, we have built our courses online around a provider powered by Digital Chalk. And it's exclusive to us, and it is a learning management service or system. So it's easy and secure registration for these online courses. So now the bulk of the course goes online, and you can access it anywhere, at any time, you know, the old 24/7. And the internet is one of the best ways to deliver these courses at reasonable prices. We strive at the highest level of service, both in and out of the classroom. So you do have the access to our instructor technicians to answer any questions at any time. Now, as we continue, I've already mentioned, well, you learn at your own pace. Anytime you can log in. So it works around your busy schedule. You could go in for 10 or 15 minutes at lunchtime or before you turn in at night. And everything's there at your computer. So there's no set time limit. In fact, when you register for one of these courses, your online course is active for at least a year. You can enter, exit, and resume sessions exactly where you left off. I could be in the middle of taking an exam and do 5 questions and simply X out, close the portal, and when I come back, it'll prompt me to resume where I left off. Now, once you cover the online training requirements, the student would typically then schedule and attend a hands-on class. And they're scheduled in our facility here in Allentown, PA, and in many prime locations around the country, and for that fact, around the world. Now, what I wanted to share with you, now I know many of you have probably taken a course, I wanted to share with you the screen that you see as you take a course and just point out a couple of things. So this is to get you comfortable. This is the CFI, or actually the basic module. So any specialty would consist of a basic CFI module, a basic CFI installation module, and then the specialty that you selected. But when you look on the screen, next to the slide itself, you will see the manual text. Now this you would have to manually control, but it is the written text to the instructor's narration that comes along with the class. So that anytime if you're not sure what he said, you of course could go to the line and back up the audio, or your choice would be to scroll down and see what the verbiage was. When you get to your hands-on class, you will be given a student manual, and the student manual would correspond to what you see in front of you under this manual text. Some other things to point out is I can advance slides by just going previous or next. Note I do have a search function, and there is attached to it a telecom glossary. Now I want to show you an idea about the search or tab is that at any time in any place, if I click on that search tab, I will get a list by number of every slide making up this course. And by selecting it, I can immediately go to that slide. You know, occasionally computer systems glitch, and we found that if for some reason one slide doesn't want to advance, if you go up here and skip it by picking the next slide, it'll go immediately to it. The other powerful function of this is the search block, in which I can enter a word and immediately say chromatic for chromatic dispersion. Immediately the slides that word appears on will pop up in this menu. Let's say if there were 2 or 3 or 4, and you could go immediately for the item that you're searching for. I wanted to share that with you so you have a good understanding of, in fact, what it looks like. Now here I've clicked on the telecom glossary. Now this is a nice feature to have. And you click on the tab and it pops up A through the alphabet Z. And if you go to a specific one here, A, you will have a scroll down choice in which I picked here, blown-in fiber. And you will see the basic definition of blown-in fiber. So I wanted to share that with you, as some of you may or may not have been in it, so that you can understand or even help other employees that you may have going through it on how it actually works. Now that sounds wonderful because, again, it minimizes your training time. And because of the busy schedules, we want you to understand how to take the best advantage of these new type of training options that you have. Now, so it's a real world where you can learn in the instructor-led classroom, and it's the base plus the specialty, which is 2 or 3 days. So what's this going to say is we have a hands-on requirement because you have to validate your skill in front of a certified instructor. Now the base CFI, if you took the CFI credential online, would be 2 days. If you elect the specialty, you typically add a 3rd day of, quote, hands-on. Now, this new online stuff is fantastic for both employer and for installer employees themselves. So it looks like the absolutely perfect solution. And from years of watching the students come into class, I'm going to say it is, but you really got to be prepared for the entire course. Now, I'm an older guy, and here's what most of you guys look like when you come to my class on the hands-on side. Often, students come unprepared. Now, remember, these classes could start out as a rookie. And if you signed an employee up on Friday and sent him to the hands-on class on Monday, and he's never logged in, looked at the material, this is what he's going to look like when I see him on Tuesday. He needs just a little bit. But let's talk about preparation, because I've had students that haven't been aware. So make sure this isn't you or your employees. They didn't know there was an online component. They certainly haven't even looked at the training modules, and maybe they don't even know what single mode fiber is. There is a couple of exams that we require, and it's exclusive to TFS. One is called a practical exam. It's an open workbook type of exam that is downloaded from the online. And if they haven't downloaded when they get to the hands-on class, it can be quite overwhelming experience to have to start it then. And often, even if they've downloaded, they at least need to attempt to start it. So don't do this to yourself or your employees, because it does result in additional frustration, anger, and difficulties for all the parties around. Now, I really want to stress that, because you can imagine yourself if your boss said Friday, show up next Tuesday, and you're a new rookie, it could be quite intimidating. So we're going to give some tips on other ways, but if you follow that basic slide. Now, back to the on-learn. So the TFS is the certification, and as we stated, you can pretty much do it anywhere. But the hands-on work is important. That's why you must come in front of a certified installer or instructor and go through a set of hands-on skills labs that fit your level, obviously installer, or your specialty. So you review the lectures online. You can online complete the actual certification exam, and of course download and hopefully start that practical workbook exam prior to attending the required hands-on instruction class. Now, many people first want to book the instruction class first and immediately go there. Let's get that done. But you're doing your students or yourself a disfavor if you, just don't take the time. Well, what's the time? You can, the class is free form online. You can take any part at any time. It is not locked down that you have to take this before that or before you can schedule your class. But if I were to put a time limit, say, you can't schedule your hands-on class until you finish the online portion. Now, as an instructor, I'd like to tell you all that. As a practicality, it's not practical in the real world today. But let's take a look at, what is involved in this if it looks, like it's too much or too quick. But in the exams, what I'd like to let you know is that the fiber school or the TFS, our final exams are to challenge the student to learn both what you learned in the classroom and the field situation. So it is extremely important in order to complete these two exams. And the practical exam is truly unique in the industry to the TFS. So how do you really go about it, or what is these exams? And I'm sure many of you have already been through this. Now, about the required exam, this practical workbook exam, you demonstrate a practical knowledge of certification level material. It is an open book test, and I'll go into that a little bit, but it's an open workbook in which there's a series of questions and exercise which the student fills out and turns in either electronically or to the instructor by the time he finishes his hands-on class. Now, the second exam, which is historically the multiple choice, true, false, 50 question exam, and you have to pass it to get your certification. And it's just a typical bubble sheet if you sat down, but we're going to do it online. So there are the two exams. So how do we prepare that so that we don't make our 3-day, if it's a specialty, hands-on class less fun or less stressful? Because if you can come to the hands-on class with this stuff done, then you can actually enjoy the experience of working with the tools and the equipment, and you'll have plenty of time to accomplish that. Now, when I tell you, well, what is it going to take to prepare for the exam? Well, here's the practical, and this is a typical picture of it, and that you will see that it can be downloaded. And in fact, if you completely fill it out, you can turn around and electronically transmit it to us, and it is scored by a certified instructor, and that will be results done by the time you get to class. And it is a workbook. It is an open book. Years, and I was a former BICSI certified instructor. Everybody would raise their hand and say, can I take this book open test or the ETA exams that we also administer here? Well, this is their chance. This is the open book exam. So the information is in the online lectures, or you could sit at your desk and Google it. It's that type of exam. It can be completed as part of a study group. If you have multiple students from the same company attending, they are encouraged to get together. It is an open book, and it's graded by the instructor technician, by us, very, very subjectively. There could be 6 or 7 answers that you could give for any particular question, of which any one of the answers would be acceptable. So it's very subjective. If it's filled out and you have a basic understanding, it's sometimes what we instructors like to call, we're just trying to see if you get it. Now, it has to be turned in by the last day of the student's hands-on class. So if you've got 2 or 3 days of hands-on to accomplish, you don't want to be spending time having to do the book work. Now, how do I avoid that? Because I said, well, I wouldn't sell you the class on Friday and show up on Tuesday. Well, you could, provided that you all understand that you need to get this accomplished. So let's take a look first at this practical. Well, if I go in and immediately download it, how long would it take an individual by himself? It would take you 4 to 6 hours, even in an open book format. Obviously less if you have the benefit of a study group. You do need to do the online training modules. Now, if you go in and it looks, wow, that's too long, I've mapped it out here right before you guys that the base CFI modules take 3 hours and 30 minutes. The specialty modules in general are about an hour additional. And if you downloaded your practical, you could probably complete 60% of it as you go through the narrated modules. So it's not an overwhelming time period to do in an afternoon or a weekend prior to attending a class, a quickly scheduled class that you want to get done. Okay? Now, you should try to complete it prior. Estimated time to do the exam, this is the TE, would be about 1 hour. But the practical, now, the hands-on class, and we'll kind of go through this. Now, let's go to the TE, the multiple choice. At the class, we can take the time to give you the old-fashioned bubble sheet and booklet, but that's just going to take an extra hour or 2 of your time. and may extend you getting out of here at the end of the hands-on class. But it should be done online. You can take it at any time online. You can, I have to have it done by the time the student leaves the hands-on class. But again, there's no time limit when you take the test. You can enter, exit, and resume right where you left off. I could go in and answer 5 questions and close out. And when I come back, I can go back in and it'll pick up on question number 6. You, in fact, online, get 2 attempts. And it will score you, obviously, immediately. So you know if you passed right away. Now, that's the exams. Now, how do you get the most out of the 50 questions? Is that do review the online modules. Are you locked out of taking the test immediately? No. And if you're an experienced person, there's probably much of it that you can pass. But if you don't have a rounded background, then it's important that you go back in and again read the training modules before you take the test, because you're going to need it for the practical, and it's going to give you a good background of even what we're going to be doing on the hands-on class. And again, I repeat the times here. Now, so it's a real world where you can come to a class and I like to say play with the toys. It is instructor-led. So the classroom time is base CFI is 2 days and the 3rd day. My comment on the specialty training is take the specialty for 3 days is the best value that you can get, because you come in with the CFI/specialty and have only spent 2 days, and you get a 3rd day of hands-on specifically for your industry. Much more testing on the 3rd day for just about all the specialties. And that's the hands-on portion. Now, the attendance is required to get the certification. And to actually schedule it, you can obviously call us or go to the Learn Fiber Optic and schedule it close to where you need to be. Now here's some more details. So it's about installation procedures. The 2 or 3 days are dedicated to skill labs. That's why it's important that you understand why the online modules should be covered before attending, so you know what the outside plant cable looks like or what the ring tool is used for. Now, in this hands-on class, there is a small amount of time allocated to review, answer any questions you have, or fine-tune your practical. It is limited in a 2-day session to about 1 hour. And so that's not enough time for you to take a blank sheet, because we don't have time to go over every question. But we will review and critique it, but the bulk of the time must be spent on hands-on skills. So I'm going to repeat this. Review your online modules prior to taking a class. Do complete it. Get it done, get it over with. But you should come to class at least 80% complete. Again, because we provide very little time. Now in this quick turn, it benefits you with short days out. But an instructor on a hands-on 2 or 3 day class really doesn't have time to teach if you haven't gone through the sessions. There's just not enough time. Now, the last section I also wanted to talk about, and we can tie this to custom specialties. And custom basically says that we can competitively bring a class to you to reduce your company's travel, increase productivity, save time and money. Now, in regards to the custom classes as far as the specialty installers, that you can have the 2-day hands-on on your site. But as I have stated before, you do need to make sure that your people have covered the online material prior to the instructor. Under the custom, if you're getting a 2- or 3-day specialty on site, I would encourage you to ask for an additional day for an abbreviated instructor-led module. So we could come in, have a day of teaching, and then finish off with what we need to do with the hands-on. Now back to other custom type of opportunities. Well, it is one of the best ways to train employees, especially if you have many. And you can custom to get the exact training you need. We can kind of mix and match, do things you don't need to do, and other things that may not be part of a base class. And we can address your specific hands-on, the most common of which is maybe specific connectors that you may need for a project that you're working on. And we may come in with a generic connector, but if you had told us that you need, say, Corning Unicams, then that's what we're coming in with. So make sure that sort of agenda is adapted to your specific needs. So we can be very flexible. The course, the dates, locations, whether it be at your place or a hotel close to you, and we bring everything, equipment, labs, exams. So your people remain close to the field and are available for emergencies or other things that you need to discuss with them. And here's kind of what I just said before. With your specific connector, often we do outside plant or installers where your specific closure that's used in a system is used, not maybe the generic one that we might use normally in a class. We can customize this and work on your materials. You can, in fact, mix agendas. Well, I want to know about petrochem, but I really don't need to know about sensing. I just need to know about cameras. And you can go ahead and fix whatever topic you want. And then just take action. It's a very simple procedure, but discuss with your salespeople or ask to discuss it with one of our installer techs on what your needs are for the custom training. So you select your course and certification, you request a quote, and sure, it's the basics, how many students you have, your place, or we got to pay for a hotel room. Or, and what date how quick do you need to do it, and what dates. And then you review our proposal and simply book the class and select your date. So it's just a matter of taking action. Now, our experience in the field is quite varied. Everything from some of the big guys, AT&T, Verizon, to various U.S. military, both installation type of military-based people, government agencies, and as I mentioned before, even some little more technical focal where they're working on, well, equipment itself, like submarines or ships or other type of field equipment as opposed to facilities equipment. And end users of all categories are available. So the message here is that we can bring any of these courses to you. We can customize specific for your needs. So that's pretty much what I had to cover. I hope without complaining too much about preparation. And if anyone has some questions, we can take a look at that now. Now I think we do have, there we go. Yeah, the military's a good thing. Like here's if the company strictly does government installations, but we don't do military. Well, where do you fit? Well, if your government installations, I assume you mean no military installations. Um, the basic military class is pretty much a campus class. But I would say that if you absolutely wouldn't go on an Army base, but you'd go into the FEMA office building in D.C., then one of the things I might suggest is that you might fit into just the telecommunications, which I often use as a generalist type of thing for commercial installations. Now, it looks like we also have, certifications are good for 2 years. And, here's kind of a good one. We have the cable TV, I guess the telephony industry. It's all the same today. But if I was doing splicing for a CATV company, what class would I take? Actually, there's two that I would suggest or might suggest. One, if you mean cable TV, I would probably go strictly for the utility. If you're out working on the poles or in the grounds, that shares the UTL. If specifically you're one of these subcontractors who are specializing in the fiber to the home or fiber to the X, then I would definitely take that class. That'll give you an idea of where you might fit based on what you do. I hope that helps a little bit. Do we have any other questions from the field? Well, if not, I want to thank you for hanging in with me. And hopefully you got the instructor's message of be prepared, or that's an old Boy Scout message, isn't it, or a Scout message. So please feel free to contact. I hope you found this session useful and will be valuable for your planning. You can contact or any questions at any time simply by contacting us at training@fiberoptic.com. And of course, our phone number, 877-529-9114, and your prompt would be 2. And this webinar can be reviewed at any time by visiting fiberoptic.com/webinar. I thank you for your participation today.